I think my FWB has feelings for me, don't know how to navigate. So, about 6 months back I went out for drinks with some friends, one of which was Chris, fake name obviously. Chris and I have known each other since we were in middle school, and we're never super close, but we're always good friends if that makes sense. She got wasted and was being flirted with by another guy in the group who was sober, which sent off alarm bells for me. So when we were all walking to our apartments and he'd lingered instead of going to my apartment, I ended up crashing on her couch. The next morning while we were having breakfast, she admitted she found me cute, really appreciated what I did the night before, and wanted to know if I'd be up for a FWB situation. So ever since we've been just that. We'd both just gotten out of relationships at the time, and surprisingly, this FWB situation resulted in us actually becoming really close friends to where we now actually just hang out more often than we hang out specifically with the intent to sleep with each other. Well, before we had a pretty strict no staying the night rule because for her, that felt like a step beyond FWB, but late last month she asked if I'd be willing to stay the night because I just really need someone to cuddle with tonight. And I didn't think anything of it and obliged. But now it's become every time we do it, one of us ends up stay the night at the other's apartment. She's also been making more overtly flirty comments towards me when we're with friends, which was another rule we had because we wanted to keep things private. Problem is, I don't know that I share her feelings. She's amazing, don't get me wrong. Beautiful. Can't undersell this. I work in a field where I work with models on a regular basis and most of them do not compare. No idea why she picked me of all people. Brilliant, driven, and one of the kindest people I know. This girl volunteers at a soup kitchen weekly. I've been incredibly grateful to have gotten closer to her over the last 6 months. I think she's one of those people you're lucky if you get to meet, even one of in your whole life. I know once feelings get involved there's no real going back to strict FWB, but I also would rather get buried alive than hurt her. So I would love advice on how to handle this. TLDR. I, 28M, have been FWB with Chris, 27F, for around 6 months and suspect she's caught feelings. I need help navigating the situation. Update. AITA for refusing to repay my ex-husband for the college tuition he paid years ago. So first I want to clarify some things. Yes, it was our marital home. We bought it after getting married. I didn't fight so hard for it in the divorce for a few reasons. Mostly that she was borderline harassing me about how they needed the house for their growing family. I also didn't want to deal with a longer and more drawn-out divorce, and it would have been if I fought for the house. Yes, he bought me out of the house, however it really wasn't much as it was late 2007. Most of it went towards credit card debt anyway. Another thing, when he was paying for my schooling, we were still legally married. The divorce didn't finalize until after I graduated. There was no child support until after I graduated. There was never any alimony. I did live in the house while I was in school, and they lived in an apartment. He paid all those bills, including hers after she got pregnant. So his finances were tight at the time. The family that called weren't my relatives. They were my ex's and his wife's relatives. I thought they were family. They've since been blocked. On to the update. I got off work yesterday to find a few missed calls from my son. When I called him back, he tells me that his stepmom has now asked for the money from the check since it was almost the same amount they spent on my college. She said it was obvious I'd never pay my debts and that I would just give him, my son, more money anyways. I'm stunned. I'm pissed. I don't know what has possessed her to think to ask my son for money intended for his family. I tell my son to ignore her and I'll handle it. So next I call my ex. It goes straight to voicemail. I try again a few minutes later and it's the same thing. So I reluctantly call my ex's wife and she answers immediately. I tell her the three of us, my ex, her, and me, need to meet first thing in the morning to discuss the debt. I'm thinking this needs to happen in person with all three of us so there's no confusion. She agrees. This morning we met at a coffee shop near my ex's work. As soon as they sit down I say, "So, ex's wife, want to tell me why you think it's appropriate to ask my son for money?" My ex looks at her and says, "You asked our son for money?" She starts on about how she was only asking for the money they're owed, and she didn't ask for more than was on the check. Then she says, "For years we struggled due to paying for your school. For years we couldn't afford a new car, a new house, or a nanny. My kids had to share a room." She goes on about her struggles. I started to tune her out because I keep thinking there's no way she's this deluded. It may have been inappropriate, but I laughed. I literally took out thousands in credit card debt to keep me and my son afloat while my at the time husband was shacking up with her and paying her bills. My ex looks at her and says, "What the hell, ex's wife?" I added, "It's laughable you think you're owed anything from while you were a mistress. We were married when he paid for my schooling. It's quite literally none of your business how he chose to spend money. You had zero entitlement to his money until you said, 'I do.' And from what I recall, that wasn't until years after the divorce was even finalized. Do not contact me or my son about this money again. You will never see a dime from me." She rolls her eyes and gets up to leave. My ex tells her he's going to stay for a minute. After she's gone, he asks why I didn't just call him and tell him about what was going on. Said he would have handled it and that it didn't have to go this far. I say I did call him. Twice actually, and this is how we figured out she blocked my number from his phone. So those of you who said she's just very insecure, you were absolutely correct. I tell him that she involved his sister, cousin, and his sister-in-law. That I got several calls and texts from them telling me I should just pay back my debt, finally. I tell him that she involved the family and then asked our son for money intended for his baby. She's crossed too many lines. He apologizes and says he'll make sure she doesn't bother me about it again. We both leave after that. My son told me he blocked her number and doesn't want her at his house until she apologizes. That's pretty much it for now. Update. Well, I didn't really expect to have an update this soon, or at all. I suspect it'll be the only update. After the first post, I called her and told her I suspected she had feelings. I was right. And told her I didn't have feelings and wasn't ready for a relationship out of panic for the situation. Thankfully, it was therapy day. I talked things out with my therapist about how I have serious fears about getting back into a relationship, how those fears made me react way too quickly, and how now that things potentially collapsed, I've re-examined how I feel about her. After therapy, I just let myself sit with things for a while. Then I called her. Call went to voicemail. So I texted her and let her know I wanted to talk and wanted to do it in person if she was willing. She texted back and said she was willing to meet for dinner to hear me out. So I laid everything out for her. How my last relationship fucked me up and how that made me panic when I realized she had feelings and act before I even gave myself time to process. And then I told her how I really felt. That her voice is my favorite sound. How her smile is what I see when I close my eyes. All of it. And most importantly, that if she was willing to be patient with me, I wanted to give us a shot. Anyways, I'm taking her in a proper date this weekend. TLDR, I nearly ruined things but managed to salvage it and got the good ending. Final update. Hey all, posting this with mod permission because I wanted to give you all one final update to my story. It's been a bit more than 8 months since I made my first post and update, and the two of us are still together. We moved in together about 2 months ago, which in my head feels like a short of amount of time to date before moving in. But after discussing things, it does feel like we've been dating for much longer than 8 months, because for several months before that we basically were dating already. When I made my first post, I was still dealing with the fallout of an incredibly toxic and abusive relationship that truly strained my ability to trust and allow myself to feel love. I'd be lying if I said that even through therapy that my trust issues have been resolved. But she's been so incredibly lovely and patient with me. She's genuinely just a spectacular human being. This is the first time a relationship has ever just felt simple. I don't feel like I have to perform for her, and genuinely my walls have finally come down. Well, shortly after she moved in, she started dropping the hints. She started talking about weddings, wanting to start a family, etc. quite a lot. I'm generally bad at picking up hints, but these were obvious even to me. So I just asked if these were things that she wanted and what timeline she was considering. I wanted to be positive that if I were to propose, I already knew the answer was going to be yes, so I was probably overly thorough with getting her to say, "Yes, I want to marry you." I know she wants something romantic and grand, but I also know her as a person enough to know she has a lot of social anxiety. I know we've agreed on a fall wedding. Luckily, I know a lot of people in the wedding industry since I'm a photographer, so as long as the proposal is relatively soon, I can call in some favors and get things taken care of to make sure she gets the wedding of her dreams. I also know that her dream vacation spot has always been Italy, which I've been to with clients in the past. Today I booked the plane tickets. I told her that I have a photography gig I booked for March and that I wanted to bring her along since I know she's always wanted to go. I had a few choices of where to propose and have deliberated on that for a couple weeks now, but what I've landed on is that the third day there I'll be taking her to Rimini for the day, and near sunset I will propose to her on the Ferris wheel there. It was one of the only things that ticked all the boxes for what she wanted. I would move the heavens and earth to make things perfect for her because it's what she deserves. So thank you all, especially those of you that were there to tell me I was being irrational and dumb in my first post. I remember being in that panicked headspace. Honestly, I thought I wasn't worthy of her back then because I thought I was too damaged. I thought there had to be some horrible fate in store for me, and I tried to run from those feelings. But I'm very glad many of you called me on it and got me to re-examine things. I've never felt so loved and fulfilled in my life. She's the first person in my life that I don't question if she has ulterior motives being close to me. Frankly, she's not exactly starved for choices in the dating department, and if she didn't truly love me, she could just find someone else at any point. For some reason, she's chosen me, and I'm going to cling on to that for the rest of my life if I can.